And welcome everyone to Haven of Horror. I'm Subject. We have a full house tonight. We've got the Day Ghost, we've got Torgo and Robert Wild. We're here talking about Alien tonight. What's up, everybody?
Eh?
Eh?
Nothing much. I'm really excited to be talking about this classic.
It is, in fact, a classic. Um, Making sure I've got it.
I don't think
Yes.
anyone can dispute that. Yeah.
Well, I was waiting for somebody to jump in there, but nobody.
Real meeting of the minds of this video so far.
This is what the review's going to be. Alien, it's great. Bye.
Austin, did that launch go much smoother this time? Are you satisfied?
No, because then we had a really awkward start.
So Alien is a 1979 movie directed by Ridley Scott. Um, I would say it's one of the most well-known horror films at this point. It's been referenced across a multitude of different things, and there's what number of Alien movie are we on now?
I guess this would be 5.
6?
Oh, yeah.
So if you count the AVP movies,
Well, I was counting
Yeah.
Prometheus and stuff.
yeah.
Well, if you count
If you
Prometheus
count
and stuff, there's
AVP,
more
then
than
we're on to,
6.
Yeah, we're up to, 9?
Yeah, I think the next one's the 9th one.
Yeah.
I wasn't counting that, but yeah.
Very very weird franchise. We'll get to some of those other ones later, but right now we're talking about the movie that started it all. Austin, give us a plot synopsis for Alien.
Alien is about space trekkers who go down to a planet where they find eggs, and then they bring an alien onto the ship, and then there's hijinks.
See, this is why we
Hijinks
ask you
ensue.
on here, Austin, just for that wonderful plot synopsis.
Yeah, every show I go on to, I'm always forced to be the plot synopsis guy for some reason.
You're just too good at it.
I guess.
Yeah, it's short and sweet, to the point.
So this obviously is one of those movies I think that we all had to discover in one way or another since it came out before our times. Um, so just to kind of get things rolling a little bit, how did you guys discover this movie?
Here, I'll let you guys go first.
I mean, I guess for me, it was just pretty simple. I was getting into movies as a teenager, and I heard this was like one of the greatest movies that ever made. So I checked it out when I was like 15 or 16, something like that, and I really dug it.
Yeah, when I was a little kid, one of my favorite shows was Whose Line Is It Anyway? I don't know if you guys have ever seen that, but it's an improv show, and one of the guys did an alien impression of the chest burster scene where like his hand comes out and he's doing this. And I thought it was
Oh.
funny, but I had zero context for it. And then sometime after that later, Alien was on TV and my mom was watching it and she was like, "Oh, here's the scene that he was doing. Oh, watch this." And I watched it. It was the most terrifying thing I had ever seen in my life. She didn't let me watch the rest of the movie. I guess she thought that was too scary, but I got to see the chest burster scene, so I knew what that was. I mean, it was on TV, so it was probably edited a bit, but it definitely made an
Yeah.
impression on me. And then a few years later, I think I borrowed it on DVD from like a friend, where I was like, "Oh, it's that movie." So I've been with this movie for a long time. It's definitely one of the first early movies I got into horror movies. When I was like a young teenager.
Actually, now that you mentioned that, as far as like references in other media goes, I had seen Spaceballs before this movie,
Yeah.
which
Not
obviously
yet.
has it's got the John Hurt cameo at the end. So
best
I
sequel
hadn't
to
seen
Alien.
that. Yeah,
That
it
is
is really
objectively
the
true.
best sequel.
Yeah, with like the Whose Line Is It Anyways thing, that reminded me. I think it was like my last year of high school, so I'm like 17. I was at my dad's. We used to do like a lot of like family game nights, and we played charades. And the thing I got was Alien. So it's like, okay, how much
Yes.
to act out Alien? So I'm like sitting there like pretending to drink tea, and then I was like, and fell to the ground. I was like, and nobody got it. And I was like, you're all a bunch of assholes. But whatever.
No.
That's unfortunate.
But Alien's one of those movies that I don't remember seeing for the first time. Like this and Predator were just movies I was watching constantly. Like like way too little, like before I have conscious memories.
You were that kid.
Oh yeah, no, I remember when I was like 4, my favorite movie was like Predator 2. It was awesome. It was kind of like, in the vein of that, where like these movies were just always on. So,
Well,
uh,
when I was a teenager, when I first saw Alien like beginning to end on DVD, I don't remember actually what I watched first in full, that or Aliens. I saw them both like back to back around the same time. I saw
mhm.
Aliens at the friend's house and they let me borrow their copy of Aliens. So I don't remember which one I watched first, but I saw those
Yeah,
like back to
same.
back, and I love both. And I love both. I mean,
Hmm.
Aliens, the first one's better. We'll get to Aliens another time, but I love both those movies
Yeah,
growing up.
we'll
Yeah,
save
same
that
here.
for
And I
another
don't know if
review.
I saw Predator or Alien first either. It's just all a blur.
Yeah.
Yeah, I ran into these at my local library when I was like 14-ish, somewhere in that area. And I watched through them, and funnily enough, I did not like Alien the first time I watched it. I was very much new to horror, so like my idea of horror was, the trashy slasher movie. Not much has changed there, but I've grown to appreciate the more slow burn, sophisticated style of horror. So this is a movie that I go back to every so often, and I'm like, oh, my tastes have changed. I like this a little bit more and a little bit more. Um, but this is also a movie that every time I watch it, it feels like the first time I'm watching it, because I'll be like, oh, I forgot about this, or oh, I forgot about this. So this is a very interesting movie in many ways for me, but it's becoming one of my favorites.
Yeah, and I guess I'll say up front, because I found out like really late that I had room in my schedule to do this, so I didn't get a chance to rewatch it. But I was like,
Mm.
I've seen this movie a million times. I rewatched it back in October, and I know it like front to
Yeah.
back, anyways, so it's not a big deal. But while I was doing it, because I still had like an hour, I started watching this documentary about the making of Alien. I was like, oh, maybe I'll learn some new things. And like 5 minutes in, I almost turned it off because they're talking about like everything before Alien. Because I don't know how much you guys know about that, but there's like a lot of stuff kind of before the movie in terms of how it gets made. Um, but I can't remember who it was, but they were talking about Dan O'Bannon and his experience doing Total Recall, and he kept saying it over and over again. And every time he was like, Dan O'Bannon was working on Total Recall, and I was like, like
Total Recall. That's how
yeah,
I'm gonna
he
say
like
it forever.
he like he like constantly like he was like, yeah, Dan O'Bannon was working on Total Recall, and I was we were talking about doing this Alien project, but Total Recall was kind of taking up all of his time, and I really enjoyed what he was doing with Total Recall, and I was like, oh my god, this is driving me insane.
That is how
But
I'm gonna
that was
say.
true.
That is how I'm gonna say Total Recall forever now.
Yeah, same here.
Total Recall.
It's maddening. Uh, but yeah, this movie
Austin
is
hates accents.
interesting.
Confirmed.
Well, it's just weird pronounce. I don't even think he had a southern accent. I think I added that to it, but it was just the way he pronounced it. But yeah, Alien's weird because it's kind of a full feature made out of one segment from Dark Star. I don't know if how much like if you guys have seen Dark Star. Um,
That's
I have not.
Carpenter's first movie, right?
yeah,
Okay.
O'Bannon and Carpenter did it together like in college. It was like a short film that kind of ballooned out into a full feature. And the alien part of that is so strange because the alien's a giant beach ball that one guy's following around a ship. And that
Oh
movie's a
wow.
comedy, so like it's all very silly.
Yeah.
Well, Dan
Oh, weird.
O'Bannon, yeah, Dan O'Bannon wrote and starred in Dark Star, which John Carpenter directed, and yeah, it was played for comedy, even though I don't know how well it played. I know it didn't do well when it came out, but yeah, it's just a beach ball that has like claws pasted to it, and it's painted to look like an alien. And it's just Dan O'Bannon chasing that around for like 5 minutes or something. I haven't watched the full
Oh,
movie.
it's way longer than 5 minutes. I can
Oh
tell
yeah,
you that
okay.
from experience.
But he was a big sci-fi fan, movies, short story, comics, and that's where a lot of ideas for this movie came from, just sprinkled in throughout it, just different concepts. And after Dark Star didn't do well, like he did have an idea of wanting to do that again, but like as a serious horror movie. And
Well, I've always heard
originally,
a story of him walking into a theater and nobody was laughing in the theater watching Dark Star, and
I can believe that.
he was like, "Well, fuck you guys! If I can't make you laugh, I'm gonna make you scream."
I hope that's true.
Yeah, I hope that's true too. But that's the story I've always heard about that.
But yeah, at one point they were pitching it to Roger Corman, and he got really close to signing on. Like, so it was originally going to be like a really cheap, cheesy B movie, and then they got some producer on board who was like, "Oh no, we can put actual money into this." And then 20th Century Fox was interested in the script at one point. But to make a long story short, what happened is I'm sure this movie would have happened in some capacity at some point. But then a movie called Star Wars came out in 20th Century Fox and said, "Okay,
Yeah.
what sci-fi scripts do we have? Oh, that Alien one. Okay, let's do that." So it definitely got more money than it probably would have, if it was made just a few
Yeah.
years
Mhm.
prior. The
I can
original,
imagine.
yeah, I think
Sorry,
the
go
first title was gonna be Star Beast, which again just was very cheesy. But then Dan O'Bannon, like in the script, noticed that I have they keep calling it an alien, and that word alien just keeps popping up a million times throughout the script. I'll just call the movie that, and everyone was on board and thought it worked great.
Mm.
It was weird
That's
that there
a nice
was a
title.
movie just called that before. But yeah,
Well, I can imagine like in a world before Star Wars that movie existing, but they go to Roger Corman and it's a lot
Yep.
cheaper and maybe less of what it is now.
Mhm. Well,
Yeah,
and
for
there's
sure.
also I was talking to John about this, and I don't know how much like people really know about this because it's not something I ever really heard people talk about until like maybe like a year ago. There's also like contention about the script and like how much of it in the final product is O'Bannon and how much of it was rewritten. And like a big part of the documentary I was watching was about that, where like they call his version like kind of like a shitty B movie, which goes into the Roger Corman thing, and how they kind of elevated it. While he says that the final movie just is what he wrote, and
Really?
I'm sure the truth is probably in the middle. I can kind of see part of what they're saying because I've seen other Dan O'Bannon movies, and nothing against them. Like Return of
Yeah.
the Living Dead is a good movie because it's like a silly B movie. But I can also kind of see, there was probably more of that in Alien, I'm sure, before it kind of moved on.
Well, it's interesting because I think if you took the same script and the same like basic structure of this movie and you gave it to a lesser director, I can imagine like this. I can see the schlocky Roger Corman version of this movie with the story. So
I mean,
I
that's
don't
just
know.
Alien Resurrection.
Yeah, well, that
Yeah,
was one of the
which
funniest things.
we'll get to that at some point.
That was one of the funniest things in the documentary I was watching. Was I think it was like a producer. They were given the script and they were reading it, and they're like, "I'm 12 pages in. This is fucking atrocious." And the person that gave it to them was like, "No, no, 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 no. Keep reading it. Trust me." And they kept reading it, and they're like, "Oh, okay." But it's got like that one good scene. It's got the chest burster scene. So like, yeah, let's
Yeah.
make this movie.
Yeah,
We can make
it's
something out of that.
it's definitely a situation where it just depends on who you believe, because Dan
Exactly.
O'Bannon gets credit for the script. He also wrote it with Ron Shusett, who they were working on Total Recall together. And that, of course, took a long time
Okay,
to
that was the guy that kept saying
actually
it
happen.
then.
Probably. Uh, and Ron Shusett, his idea was the chest burster scene, because that's one thing. Because Dan O'Bannon had like the setup in the beginning, but he just couldn't figure out how to get the alien on board the ship in an interesting way. And it was Ron Shusett's idea to do the facehugger chest burster thing. So that was definitely an early version of the script that had that. And then a couple of producers brought in David Geiler and Walter Hill. They're the ones who said like, "Oh yeah, we wrote like most of that script. We should have been given credit," but instead they were just credited as producers.
I
And the one
needed to
thing,
watch this documentary with you because you got like all of the points except this documentary didn't have the little names under people when they popped up. So I was like,
yeah,
okay, like this is like a guy like I don't recognize him.
yeah, I did a lot of research on this movie this week because I love it.
Okay,
I mean,
perfect. Yeah.
there's a lot of stuff here I already knew before, just little tidbits of stories. But
Yeah.
the one thing Dan O'Bannon and Ron Shusett like do like admit like was the producer's idea was Ash the robot. That whole subplot we know like for a fact came with their reworking of the script. And we also know that they changed the
makes
names.
sense.
We also know that they changed the names of the characters, but according to Dan O'Bannon, the plan was always from the beginning to have like gender neutral names for the characters so that they could cast whoever. Like none of the characters, they were like, oh, this is gonna be a man or a woman or a person of color or whatever.
Yeah.
All the names like Ripley, Dallas, Lambert, like they're all gender neutral so that, you know, like anyone can play them. And of course, those names came later. Those were from the rewrites from the producers. But according to Dan O'Bannon, the original names they had, like that was always the intention. It's like these gender neutral, vague names.
Mhm. Yeah,
Which is how you
exactly.
end up getting Sigourney Weaver in the lead, where this is her first big movie. It's just cast because she had a really good audition, and Ridley Scott really liked her, and you know, it just so happened to star her. You know,
Well,
and it
that's
totally
always
worked out.
kind of been funny to me because you like, there's always those stories where it's like, oh, it's gender neutral, so like it just kind of happened that we ended up with a female lead,
Mhm.
which is always amusing to me because that's like the horror trope, and obviously this is part of
Yeah.
cementing
Yeah.
that. But like, it is funny in retrospect when you look back at it, and it's like, yeah, I mean, she's the final girl, of course.
Although I'd say Ripley is a lot better than most final girls I've seen
Oh yeah,
in
Yes,
no,
other
of
know that.
slasher
course.
movies.
No, of course. But like, it is like part of that. Like, Alien is a
Yeah.
proto slasher movie,
Yeah, this is
100%.
definitely, like cementing those tropes.
Well, and it's
Yeah,
interesting
exactly.
how this is a 79 movie, but it feels more like an 80s movie in some ways. Because a lot of the 70s,
Yeah.
especially those proto slashers, are very grounded in some kind of reality, whereas this is very out there, sci-fi. Um,
But it is also very grounded in that, like,
Mhm.
they're just space truckers. Like, it's not like they're, kind of like, like the Star Trek Enterprise is coming down and they're gonna
well, yeah,
find.
but I mean, like, it's
Uh,
not just like a dude in a house. You've
no,
got
no,
the
of
alien
course. But I
design,
just mean
you've
like it
got
still is
this.
very much grounded in like real
It's like
world,
the way it's
understandable ideas.
the way it's filmed and like executed is very very grounded, but it's got like a out there sci-fi kind of
Yeah,
premise.
Yeah,
exactly.
So
yeah. So, like, in terms of execution, pacing, and everything, it's very 70s, like Black Christmas or Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But I just mean in looks and idea, like story elements, that feels more 80s, where we're starting to go, push the boundaries of.
But see, I would say it's more like a marriage of that kind of 70s, like what you're talking about with like the grounded proto slasher idea, with the like sci-fi horror of the 50s. Like, it's kind of like a wedding these two things together.
And that's possible. The 50s sci-fi horror, that's kind of a blind spot for me. I will, experience that at some point. But
Every
just as
movie is
someone
about
who hasn't,
communism. That's all you need to know.
as someone who
Which is
hasn't
good
watched that
because
stuff,
communists come out of eggs and lay lay their seed in you.
so they infiltrate you.
as someone who hasn't watched a lot of 50s movies yet, it's impressive how the the sci-fi stuff in this makes it feel like a more modern movie than it is.
Mhm.
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 Well,
Yeah,
and
for
Dan
sure.
O'Bannon, you have to get like how much of the finished script is actually is or not. You do have to give him credit for like the movie existing as it is, not just because A, it was his idea, but B, he brought on a bunch of artists he had met or worked with on Jodorowsky's Dune, the infamous Dune movie that was getting developed
Oh,
in the 70s. Yeah, he was working on that, which of course never happened and evolved
yeah.
into the David Lynch movie. But
Just
that's
like
where
the
he met.
Total Recall movie that didn't
Yeah,
happen in their
just
head.
like the Total Recall movie that didn't happen. But yeah, that's where he met Ron Cobb, Chris Voss, and of course H.R. Giger, who's
Hmm.
he Dan O'Bannon saw his art and like saw an art piece like of like the alien as we see it, and he's like, that's it, like I want that, and he got Giger on involved with production design and everything, and a lot of why this movie works so brilliantly, where I get where both of you guys are coming from in terms of how sci-fi or grounded or out there it is the fact that Ron Cobb is the one primarily who designed like the interior of the ships, and he was obsessed with making everything as believable and realistic as possible without looking too NASA. But he still wanted everything grounded, like lots of pipes, lots of enclosed spaces. He wanted everything to look functional with the ship.
Mhm.
And there's another artist named Mobius. I mean, that was his nickname. I cannot, for the life of me, pronounce his real name. But Mobius designed the spacesuits, and he wanted like a very Asian samurai take on the spacesuits, which you can kind of see in the finished film. But Ron Cobb is responsible for like the sets and the like looking very grand realistic. Meanwhile, Giger did all the alien stuff, the xenomorph, the facehugger, the space jockey, all that stuff, which is extremely exotic and
Yeah,
alien and
because
weird. And
H.I.
it's those
Giger's
two
never
things that
seen
make
a
it work.
penis he wasn't afraid of.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Wait, so you're telling me that Giger created the big blue guys that we see in?
Yes. Well, he created their penises. I don't know about the rest of them. Um,
No, I was mostly joking because I know everybody hates that we finally like showed the space jockeys.
I mean, I do just to the extent that they're like 15-foot elephant men in the original Alien, and then
Yeah.
like completely ruin that.
I
I
like
kind of want to go back
Prometheus.
to. I want to go back to talking about like how grounded this movie is, because
Mhm.
something I don't hear a lot of people talk about, and it's actually one of my favorite aspects of the movie, is actually the acting and the ensemble. Like besides Sigourney Weaver, I think the cast is stellar in this movie.
Yeah, it's not really
And
a weak link. Like everybody is just like right there.
yeah,
Like, they're all
no,
great.
everybody nails it, and they all feel like real people. Like
Yeah.
all their performances are supernatural and grounded, and it feels like a real workspace of people that know each other.
Hmm. Yeah, it's interesting too because John Hurt, who everybody knows is the guy who gets chest bursted, he's
Yeah.
like a late edition. Like they filmed one day, I think, with a different actor, and then had to change up because he was diabetic and sick from it.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Well, one thing I read was that John Hurt was who they wanted at the start, so it worked out.
So it worked
I
out.
guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Just not for the other guy.
He got
Poor
diabetes.
guy.
Wilford
Wilford-
Brimley was
It was,
the
It was Wilford Brimley.
But yeah, the whole cast.
Gets first round, he's like, "God damn it, I'll kill you."
God damn it! Chases it with an axe.
Yeah.
I'm fine now. I want to come back in.
I mean, this is a very similar movie to The Thing, with just how seriously
Yeah.
they play it. Where it's just a bunch of guys, and in this case, a couple of ladies too, who are just dealing with this creature. And they were made with very similar sensibilities, just about the paranoia and just how dry and serious they play it. And yeah, I mean, everybody in this movie: Tom Skerritt, John Hurt, Sigourney Weaver, Veronica Cartwright, Yaphet Kotto, Harry Dean Stanton, who's great. I love that guy. Ian Holm.
Oh,
Like,
he's so good.
These are all notable actors who are like in good things outside of this. Like, I know some of these names, like younger people like might not be familiar with, but like these are all like accomplished actors who have been in good stuff outside of this movie.
Yeah.
There's not a weak link or like a weird nobody person. The only real outlier is Bolaji Badejo, who plays the alien, who they just like founded a bar, who was an
Ridley
art
Scott just,
designer.
like ran into him.
It's like,
He was
you're
like,
gonna be
he was like, "This tall, exotic man. I must have him.
Exactly.
I must
And
put
this
a
is
penis on his head."
and yeah, he's a really tall, skinny dude. And this is the only movie he ever did. I think they asked him to come back for the sequel, but he declined. But yeah, he's just an art designer, and this is his only movie. But apparently, he's really, according to all sources, he was very proud of it, which is cool, even though it was a complete nightmare to film. As you can imagine, with that suit, like they had to build a swing just so he could like sit in the costume because the tail and everything, like he couldn't just sit. Like it
wow.
was
Yeah.
a horrible nightmare of an
Have you
experience.
guys ever
But he's
seen
really cool dude.
the test footage they did with the alien? It's like the most awkward thing ever because they clearly didn't know how to shoot it yet. So it's just him walking around like.
I like that test footage. Yeah,
I like to
It
see
was
that.
funny, but it's like, yeah, I'm glad we didn't shoot it like that in the movie.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's
No,
other.
I mean,
Oh, go
for
ahead.
for the most part, I think the way that they shoot the alien is very effective. I know a lot of people like to complain that it just looks like a guy in a suit, and I don't really have that until the end, where you see that wide
Mhm.
shot of him getting blown out of the escape pod. I
It's the
actually
worst
think
effect of the movie.
no, it is, yeah. But other than that, I actually think the alien looks great in this movie.
Well, they're
Yeah,
really
it
clever
does.
about how they shoot it. Like they shoot it a lot in
Yeah.
close-ups, and like
And
when it's farther back, then it's not just a guy walking around going, "I'm gonna get
Right,
you."
yeah.
But
Yeah.
which is interesting because with the stuff before that, like, there's no real hiding it or shading it. Like the egg, chest burster, and face hugger are all just fully there on screen. But when we get to
Yeah.
the main alien, it's like, okay, let's just get a close up of KY jelly spilling out of its mouth.
Yeah, and that's all you need.
Mhm.
I mean, I do feel bad for him that so much of his performance like is cut out or shaved down because I mean, you can find behind the scenes stuff too of like when the alien kills Lambert and Parker. Like they did a lot more footage there with him like crawling around in weird, interesting ways, and it's just cut down to like the bare minimum, and it probably works. I mean, Ridley Scott deliberately went for the Jaws effect, where you keep the creature off screen as much as
Right.
possible, which of course in Jaws wasn't the plan. It was just because the mechanical shark didn't work, so he had to be creative.
Mhm.
This was definitely looking at Jaws. I mean, that's even how Dan O'Bannon was pitching it to the studio at one point. It's Jaws in space, like
Jaws is like the
Yeah.
most influential horror film of all time. Yeah.
it's the most influential movie of all time, like period, probably.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like I said, apparently he was still like very proud of his performance and his work in the movie, and what we get on
Yeah.
screen like does work. Like I think it looks great.
Well,
It's
he
just the
kept in his
ending
best
that looks
part,
really
which is the happy birthday. Like
Oh, that,
bad.
I love
Which
that. I love that.
people
When I was
people
a kid,
clown
that was
on
a
a
scary
lot,
scene.
but like I don't know, I like it.
Oh,
I
when I was a
love
kid,
that
that scene
scene.
was terrifying.
Like it's silly, but you're kind of with it. I don't know.
It's still on rewatch. I think on first viewing it's
I
effective.
You need
Yeah.
a little bit of like silliness as long as the movie's not playing it silly. I think you can get
Right.
away with that. It's not like a modern movie where it's like, isn't this crazy? He's going like this.
No,
Yeah.
yeah, because
when you
in
get
the
to
moment.
Covenant, he's like,
Oh God. No,
But
I
an
mean, like
alien,
in the
it's just-
moment, it still works as a scare, even though it looks goofy. If
Yeah,
you
there's like
pause it.
three great jump scares in this movie. That's one of them. The face hugger part's one of them, and then at the end when he's on the shuttle with Ripley and like his hand comes out, like that's a quiet jump
Yeah.
scare, but it's still great. I wish that wasn't in like just all the trailers afterwards. I wish that moment wasn't spoiled so much, but it's great. It's just the only part that looks bad is when he gets shot out the airlock and he just looks like a dummy,
Yeah.
just like crawling. Like it's like by
he's
far
like,
the worst effect in the movie.
spinning around. Yeah.
And like the
Um,
explosion, as cheap as it is, like I still think it's effective. Like it's cool when Ripley's shooting out in the escape
Yeah.
pod. Like I still think that's a fairly effective sequence, even though they didn't have a lot of money to put into
That
it.
jumping off of a
Absolutely.
point that you made where there's 3 jump scares, I agree. And what makes them effective and what, because I'm normally like really hard on jump scares, I hate them. They're just a cheap like horror tactic. Is this movie oozes atmosphere, and a lot of that goes down to lighting and set direction. I think that's what I'm looking for.
Design.
Design. That's the word I'm looking for. Yes, thank you. Which I would
it was
say,
like a big fight to get the alien ship, to be as cool as it is.
Yeah.
oh, okay.
It's in one scene, so the studio was like, "Yeah, we're not going to spend $500,000 to build this like giant alien pilot thing and this huge set that you have to walk through. Like, no, you can find like a little skeleton on the floor. Like that's good enough." And they're
Yeah,
like,
and-
"No, look, we need this."
And
You would
that's-
think after all these
Chris
years,
has already
studios would
compromised.
learn like you have to put an investment in your product to make it good, so that you get a return of investment. And just
And-
use that as a bit of a
This is
segue.
John, who were very all over the place and counterintuitive
That's true.
for a long
But just to
time.
use that as a segue for just a moment to mention that this movie was made for $11 million, which seems high for that time period, but I could be wrong.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it wasn't
and
cheap.
made 184 million. So it's like just
That's a profit.
stop being an idiot. Like you're gonna make your money back.
No, I mean this movie looks amazing for 11 million.
It does, and the
Yeah,
4K
absolutely.
remaster is beautiful.
Oh, it's so good. That's how I watched it last night.
I
looks
really
so
hope
beautiful.
Let's hope that Aliens is also good and not the mess that the rumors are saying.
Yeah,
Oh no,
it is Cameron
James Cameron's hit and
supervising it.
miss.
Yeah, I know it's
Yeah.
weird because I've heard good things about the Titanic one, but I've heard not so great things about the other ones. So
Well,
I
and
don't
True
know.
Lies is even worse. It's even worse with that just because that movie's not available anywhere else.
Right? Yeah, this will be the first Blu-ray release for True Lies.
Yeah, Aliens, I can at least go buy a Blu-ray on eBay or something.
Yeah, or go to
Yeah,
a
exactly.
landfill because there's so many that I'm sure there's everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, Fox constantly re-releases these movies.
Mm.
Yeah, exactly. There's like 8 gajillion re-releases.
Uh,
But yeah, going back to the ship and the egg thing. That was my one kind of disappointment watching this documentary is I never really wanted the veil lifted on how they did the egg special effect because it it's so good and it's I think one of the few effects in a movie where I'm like that just looks so organic. Like I don't know how they did that, and
Yeah.
it was a little sad to be like, oh, that's like beat for beat. This is how they do every shot. Uh,
There's like
but
one
it's
shot
so
of it
good.
jumping out where you can't like unsee it, that it's just a tube, like like there's one quick shot of just like a
Yeah.
tube, like just with air compressed, like shooting up, and that's all you'll see now. But it's a great
Yeah, but
sequence.
now when they're looking in the side of the egg, I'm always just gonna see Ridley Scott doing this. I'm like, oh,
Oh wow.
the magic's gone.
Yeah. Well, and that sequence was like already compromised to begin with, even though I think it worked because it wasn't just going to be the ship they found. There was also going to be a pyramid, and the pyramid was where the eggs were going to be. So they just condensed that to having the eggs on the ship, which I think worked out fine.
I think it works
Uh,
out probably better, honestly,
yeah,
but the
because then they
spaceship
went and did that in
jockey
AVP.
and
and
Prometheus.
Prometheus. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the big thing that Ridley Scott fought with the producers or someone at Fox on, was just like, no, we need the space jockey. Like, we already cut out the pyramid. We need the freaking space jockey, or else there's no
Yeah.
payoff. It can't just be eggs.
He was like, "You don't understand. I have plans. We need to build a 15-foot elephant man so that I can show it was just a 7-foot tall regular man in like 30 years."
Was this after John Hurt played the Elephant Man? Is there some connection here?
Oh.
Well, yeah, it
Could
was actually
be,
they
yeah.
weren't able to build him. They just had him get it put on his elephant man suit. Just blow him up.
Well, and now Ridley Scott will never get to pay off his alien origin story.
Yeah.
We'll never
Yeah.
know truly how the xenomorph eggs got on that planet.
Well,
I mean, I like
yeah.
David.
No, I like Prometheus. I will go on record as saying that I like Prometheus. I think Alien Covenant sucks, though.
I like how both of those movies look. That's
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. They look amazing.
Ridley Scott's a fantastic director.
But Ridley Scott's like one of those directors where it's like he will come up with an idea, and I'm like, that idea is really bad, but God bless him, he's gonna own it.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's always right about his work.
Oh, yeah.
The biggest example of that is Blade Runner.
Blade Runner. Yep.
Yep.
So there is stuff like that where I'm like, I mean, I completely disagree with you, but that's fine.
Well, and
He's
even
a-
with Blade Runner, there's people on the project that disagree with him on that.
Yeah. Well,
Mhm.
he's so good at directing and visuals. He's a great storyteller. It's just one of those guys where he just needs people to rein him in, or other people's
Right.
ideas to work with. It's like, I mean, I probably like Alien Covenant more than anyone else here. It's a mixed bag. There are major flaws with it, but there are things about Alien Covenant I do like. It was just like weird that came out the same year as Blade Runner 2049, where it's like,
Yeah.
it's just kind of this little warning or ominous thing, like, yeah, this is how Blade Runner 2 could have turned out if Ridley Scott made it and was more hands-on. It was just
Or
really
it's
weird that
like,
those
why
came out
didn't
the
you
same
make
time.
that? You're clearly
Yeah,
more
exactly.
invested in the Android thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get
But
to
anyways.
Covenant at a later
Yeah,
time.
we'll swing back around that.
Exactly,
So,
exactly.
I guess the next thing I do kind of want to talk about, we mentioned it briefly, is Ripley, and kind of the final girl trope. Obviously, as a slasher fan, it's a trope that I'm used to, and I have my own favorite final girls in different movies. But I wanted to ask you, how does Ripley rank amongst your final girls that you've seen in films?
I mean, she's probably at the top.
Yeah, she's one of those final girls that I think breaks past that label, so nobody ever thinks
Right.
about putting her in that
Well,
Yeah.
and
place, even though
Which I mean, she is like.
No,
it also
exactly,
helps that
She
really
is, yeah.
exactly.
it also helps that really only the first one is a slasher of any kind.
Well, and that's what I was gonna say is I think what kind of contributed to that is that and I was saying this to John before this because he was talking to me about how like I loved Aliens as a kid, but Alien was boring, and I was like, well, that's the reason why Aliens has the reputation of being the better movie is because all these kids watched Aliens and went, yeah, this is
Yeah.
a great action
This
movie,
is awesome.
and then they watched Alien and it was like, oh. Like it was good, but like it's not as good as Aliens. Like Aliens is like, yeah. Well, I watch Aliens and I'm like, oh, you stripped away a lot of what I like about Alien. But okay.
Yeah.
Um, but I think that's part of why she's kind of looked at beyond that because a lot of people go, well, this franchise is Aliens. Like that is the
Right.
movie.
Well, I guess because of Aliens, people might think of her more as an action hero than
Exactly.
a
It's
final
the Sarah
girl.
Connor thing because Sarah
Right.
Connor, even in the first Terminator, you could
Is
say
a final girl.
is a final girl because it's more of a horror
Mhm.
movie. And then two
Yeah.
obviously ramps up the action like Aliens does, so it kind of breaks them out of that mold.
Yeah.
Damn you, James
But-
Cameron.
I'd say Ripley is right up there.
Ridley
That's the-
Scott is his
Scott's
favorite
my
final.
favorite final girl.
It's the first time we've done that in this review. Yeah, I don't know. Probably
Wait,
along.
there's no we in this, no.
That was all you.
Well, I feel like that's an easy mistake to make, but whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know. Probably up there with Laurie Strode, and I don't know. Would I have to think about the other final girls?
I mean, I like Laurie Strode. I like the 2018 version a lot, but I mean, she's like
Yeah.
super. I think she's fine in that first Halloween movie. But yeah, I mean, my top final girls are probably Ripley, Sarah Connor, and Sidney Prescott from the Scream movies.
Oh yeah, Sydney.
And
It's great.
yeah, like they all rank high for me. And Ripley, I don't think is too damaged by the sequels. Like I have issues with Alien 3, but I don't think it ruins
Well, Alien
Ripley.
3 sucks.
Well, and 4
Yeah,
gives her the power of basketball, so it kind
exactly.
of fixes any
It's
ill
great.
will that 3 had. Yeah.
It's a different Ripley, so I can roll with it or not. Like it's you know what I mean? Like it's weird, but
Right.
yeah,
Well,
as
Ripley's
far as
kind of tooled to work for each movie. Like it's not like
yeah,
you could say because you brought up Scream, like that's kind of I would say the closest to a consistent character through a franchise. Ripley, it's like
Yeah, for
okay,
sure.
like this is more the action movie, so like let's kind of retool her a little bit in that line. Okay, 3, we're kind of dialing that back a little bit, so move her this way, and then 4, give her basketball skills.
yeah.
What is it with that movie and basketballs?
Hey, Alien 4 is amazing in many ways.
Yeah, I think this channel's gonna get canceled for you saying that.
I know
It
when
is a movie.
when we get to the Alien Resurrection review, I'm going to be the most
I'm not-
positive on it.
I'm not saying anything about Resurrection right now.
It's because John's a Joss Whedon apologist.
I am. You caught me.
This entire moment is like you're on like a Discord call and everybody's just voice and they turn their camera on and you got the one guy with like a giant Confederate flag behind them and everybody's just like, oh, I'm not
no.
gonna comment on this.
So I would also agree that Ripley would be probably in my top 5 of final girls. Because like yeah, even if she's not a final girl because of the sequels, I would argue this movie still should have her in that conversation.
And
Yeah.
one thing I wanted to mention earlier too is that we were talking about how it's just funny that the protagonist happened to be a woman when that's usually the trope, in horror movies because of final girls. But when you look at the stuff that did influence this, like The Thing from Another World, 2001: A Space Odyssey, like those are movies with male leads. So if you just look at like the sci-fi aspect of it more than the horror, like yeah, it is more unusual to have a woman in the lead at that time. And I mean, not to get like overly political or anything, but
no.
I wish we made.
Confederate
Oh
flags
yeah,
coming out, boys.
I just I wish we wrote more scripts like this with just gender neutral characters where we just cast the best person
Oh, yeah, I
for
mean,
the role and
I
not
don't
be
think that's
too
even
considered.
political. I think that's just
Right? Like,
we have
I
good writing.
I'm not saying I need every movie
Yeah.
to be like that. I just wish we made more movies like that. Like a classic example was Ben in Night of the Living Dead. Like Dwayne Jones was cast just because he was the best actor that George Romero found, and that movie was like one of the first horror movies with a black lead, and it was really cool. Like I just wish we had more examples of this where it's like, oh yeah, had kind of blank slate characters where we could just cast the best actors without like being too preoccupied. Like that's all I was saying.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
And
for
Ripley's
sure.
Basically, he's
great.
saying he
It
wants
totally
a
worked out.
teenage black midget Superman because we need the right Superman is very it can be whatever.
No, the
It's
Austin,
a
that is
James
you. That is
Gunn.
you. That is your fantasy.
That's right.
Well,
Why do you
Well,
think I knew it right away?
Well, he has to cast someone different than the guy from Howard the Duck who he had in mind. That can't happen anymore. His dreams Superman project.
No
Oh
comment.
god.
If you look it up.
So
Yeah,
let me ask you
so-
guys this, because maybe this might be a reference to something, but I'm not well versed with a lot of the sci-fi that would have inspired this. So the ship's name is the Nostromo. Is that a reference to something, or?
Yeah, I think it's from a book title. I don't immediately remember what it was, but yeah, there's like some literary.
Austin, you just
Origin of
watched
it.
the documentary. You should know this.
No, they never talked about the Nostromo in the documentary. I always just assumed it probably came from something, which probably goes back to Notre Dame. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
Who
a
knows?
cool
I
ship
just- I
name.
assumed it was like a
Mhm.
line that goes to that, but
Austin,
I don't know.
imagine if we got a game like Alien Isolation, but it was just like remaking this. You got to play Alien.
I mean that was the DLC.
Oh, I didn't play the DLC.
Yeah, the DLC goes, okay, here are the two moments you would really want to play from Alien. You get the
I'll have to-
scene, you get to that scene, and then you get to do
That's
the
amazing.
ending.
That's awesome.
Except it's not like, okay, you have to play as the character in that scene. They brought back Yefet Kodo, the guy who played Dallas, I can't remember his name, and Sigourney Weaver.
Yeah,
and
Tom
it's-
Skerritt.
Yeah, thank you. And you can pick any three of them, and you can play through those scenes with it.
Okay. I'll have to get that DLC. That sounds cool.
They're like super hard. I tried it, and I was like, okay, yeah, like everybody dies.
So we talked about, all the cast is great. They feel like a crew that has been at this for a while, and all of the banter feels very organic. Is there any side characters that that you like more than others?
I like Brett. He's my favorite, and he gets taken out early and makes
Yeah.
me sad. He's just a guy who says right all the time, and I can relate to
Right?
that dude. Right.
What?
Yeah, I like him and Yaphet Kotto together, and Dallas is good too.
Yeah, I kind of
Um,
just like everybody. Like, there's no real like, oh, this character's the standout. I'm just like, yeah, they're all great.
The one thing with Ripley that everyone complains about, though, is the fact that she goes back to get the cat later on. But I don't care. I'm a cat lover. So I'm fine with it.
I'd do that too.
I feel like the
They would go
pendulum
back
would have.
and grab the cat and then bash it and then go leave on my own.
Jesus.
Put the-
I
put
feel like
cat
the
on
pendulum's
escape
probably going
pod.
to. I feel like that pendulum with that is going to swing the other way at some point, where it's like, it's so common now with people to prioritize even fictional pets over people, where it's like, oh yeah, that's what I would
Yeah, because
do.
people suck.
True,
Yeah.
but I mean,
fuck
so
yeah,
do
like
animals.
Frodo, save the cat instead.
I mean, it does suck though that the cat Jonesy is the only survivor of the original trilogy. That's weird.
Yeah,
The
that's
cat's
true.
the only character who lives.
Does it make it to 4 though?
Yeah, that's
We
like
don't know.
100 years later. It could be.
Well,
Do you
wait,
think the
wait,
new
wait,
movie-
wait.
Will be about Jonesy.
Because Aliens is like 50 years after the first movie.
Yeah, but they're frozen.
Yeah, but the
Yeah,
cat
he
is
was
in.
Oh, is the cat frozen? Okay.
Yeah,
Yep.
because for Ripley, Alien 1 through 3 is like 6
A week.
days.
Yeah.
There's that really dumb line in 3 where she's like, I've known you like all my life or whatever to the alien. It's like, no, you haven't.
He
You
sells
discovered the
it.
alien
It's
like
fine.
5 days ago. Shut up.
Oh man. All right. So do you guys have anything else you want to mention with aliens? Austin, do you have to get going soon?
I'm probably good for like another like 10 minutes.
Okay, so we'll start getting towards the
But
wrap up.
if I have to go, I can just drop out and you guys can finish. If there's more you guys want to do, don't call it quick because of me.
Oh, you're good. We plan to only go about an hour anyway, so it's all good. Does anybody have any kind of final stuff they want to bring up as we kind of get into wrap up phase?
I think we covered pretty much everything.
Well, the
Yeah.
one popular myth that is really, it's a thing I see all the time on the internet, and it's really annoying. There's a myth that during the chestburster scene, the other actors didn't know what was going to happen, and that's why they're so shocked and surprised. That's not true. They read the script. It took hours of preparation. It took hours of preparation to make that.
He doesn't have the chest burster thing there. Like that's always the thing that's gotten me with that is that it would at some point have to change to a special effect that he'd have to be locked into.
Exactly.
It's not like he just actually had something burst out of his chest.
No, it's
I'm gonna be honest. I did not know that was. I did not know that was a myth. I thought there was just like they tricked him with special effects, like maybe rigged him up beforehand or something.
Well, watch any Alien review or reaction. There'll always be somebody in the comments who's like, "Did you know that the actors didn't know what was going to happen, and that's why they're so shocked?" No, the grain of truth to that myth is just the fact that there was a lot more fake blood that sprayed out than they were expecting. So there's one shot of Veronica Cartwright as Lambert where she's like screaming and reacting to the blood hitting her. That's genuine. That's real because she was not expecting the blood to hit her. So like that shot you're seeing, like that is genuine. That's like the one grain of truth.
God.
Yeah, oh god. Just turns into total pleasant surprise.
It's the greatest line delivery in the movie.
Like, oh no.
Oh god.
Yeah.
Oh, something I did want to bring up that Austin and I talked briefly about, and it goes back into the set design. Just the retro future sci-fi look for this.
Just my favorite sci-fi aesthetic.
So good.
It's really cool.
And that's the best thing about Alien Isolation.
About the like control room thing where Ash is talking to Mother, and it's like very clearly just like blinking lights like in a room. I think that room looks so cool.
It looks awesome.
It looks good.
The only thing I'm not sure about is Mother just supposed to be like an AI or?
I think it's like the ship's AI.
The ship's computer.
Okay.
I don't know if she's like sentient or if she's just doing whatever the company like programs like that. I'm not sure. But yeah, I think that room's fine. And one really cool thing about the set design is that Ron Cobb, who designed a lot of that, he also designed the Weyland-Yutani logo, which you wouldn't even know is Weyland-Yutani. Like if you rewatch the film, like you can't unsee it, but it's like eagle wings with a sun in the middle. It looks very Egyptian. And it's all throughout the film. It's on all the outfits. It's on like just everything. So that's the company Weyland-Yutani logos. Like they just own everything. And the only time you see the words Weyland-Yutani is on the beer. Like there's a fake beer that they're drinking, and it's during the dinner chestburster scene. That's the only time you see Weyland-Yutani ever in the movie, and you really have to look for it. But it's always just called the mysterious, creepy company in this movie. And then in Aliens is where you get like that logo you associate more with it, where it's like the W with the Y in it. And they added the D at the end of Weyland for some reason, so it becomes Weyland-Yutani. But like that's all over that movie, but in this movie it's like a really subtle Easter egg thing.
Because Aliens gives like really everything cool names.
Yeah, exactly.
It's also just the alien.
Yeah, they don't say xenomorph in this one.
Yeah, that's all.
It's on camera.
Yeah. That guy.
Well, but to be fair, like that's what you would do with a sequel, right? It's like you expand that mythology.
No, I know. I'm just saying
it's not a criticism.
I'm adding to what Bob's saying because he was saying that like it's all very like the mysterious company, and that's also what they do with the alien in this movie.
Yeah. Do we want to talk about like the most notable deleted scene from this movie, which I'm sure
We
you guys have
can.
seen, with Dallas and a couple others like attached to the wall, uh, and
Yeah,
why
where
that
they're
was
like
cut?
becoming eggs.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad they cut that because the way the original life cycle was gonna work was like the face hugger impregnates a person, then has the chest burster, becomes the full alien, and then the alien would capture people, and they're like stuck to the wall, and they're like morphing into eggs. So that was gonna be the life cycle before the alien queen was invented. The next one, and I know the alien queen's kind of lame, and not everyone likes it. In the context of the film, I think it's fine. I think it's cool, but yeah. So if that scene being cut kind of gave them the freedom to do whatever with the sequel. But yeah, that would have been affected the lore very differently had that scene stayed in.
Mhm.
But
I
it's
did
very
not
famous.
know about this. I think at the end of the day, I'm glad they cut it. But at the same time, like that's a cool idea.
Yeah, I wish they kept it. I actually prefer that to what Aliens does because Aliens is just Jim Cameron read Starship Troopers and was like, let's morph Alien into that. And I think that original idea is much more unique than just, oh, they're bugs now. But the fact that it's not there, like, it's fine for the movie. Like, I don't need that scene to be there. And
I
I,
think it's
for the
in
movie,
the director's
ultimately, I
cut.
prefer that it's um, more mysterious. Like,
Mhm.
every time Ridley Scott tries to add more mythology, it is
Never
not as great.
works.
That's true. Well, and it's funny because that scene ends with Dallas like kill me, and Ripley burns him alive with a flamethrower. So
Mhm.
like that situation is recycled in like almost every Alien sequel after
Well, because they
that.
still
Like,
keep the whole, like, you're, like, stuck in it, but it's
mm,
like, this is how we make more aliens instead of the
mm,
egg thing.
yeah,
Like, you
exactly.
take that image and you kind of flip it, or,
Yeah.
adjust it.
So, question for you guys because I have not seen it. And I don't know if you guys have. Do you prefer the theatrical cut or the director's cut, or have you only seen the theatrical?
I've
I
not
would
watched the director's cut start to finish.
I would say probably theatrical. It's just the cut I watched the most.
I don't even know if I've seen the director's cut. The 4K that I have has both, but I'm pretty sure I've only seen the
Does that come
theatrical.
with both? I have to watch the director's cut then.
Yeah.
Yeah, my Blu-ray has both. It's like the same length. Like there's a couple things he adds and a couple things he takes out. I think the scene with Dallas near the end is added. I think, but like I said, I've seen the deleted scenes, but I haven't watched it start to finish. But yeah, the director's cut. It's like 95% the same movie. It's not like a longer or super radically different version.
Because I
But
know
think
I
I
know
do
a
need
lot
to
of
sit down and
people.
watch that.
Because I know a lot of people say that the Aliens director's cut is the better cut of that movie.
It is and it
Yeah.
isn't. That cut is like 20 minutes longer, and I think it's too long, but there is good stuff put back in that should have never been cut. So they're kind of equal for me.
Cameron's kind of bad for that. Terminator 2 has it like really bad, where it's like
Yeah.
there's just things where it's like this one scene. Why did you cut this? Like
Mm.
Yeah, the
this is
T2
really important.
the T2 director's cut's way better.
The
That's
theatrical
Um,
cut cuts the best scene in the movie.
yeah.
yeah. I mean,
I think it's a
that's
little
usually
I think it's a little bit more debatable for the first Alien movie which cut is better.
yeah. And like so they're not that different. That's usually the case for me though with director's cut, like Aliens, because it's like 20 to 30 minutes longer. It's like you have a longer director's cut, and then there's just a third version that doesn't exist. That's the best version.
Right.
Like that's how I have it with Aliens and Terminator 2. It's like I like both cuts, but there's not like the perfect one in my opinion. But I mean, I still love those movies regardless.
I have to head out. But you guys can keep going. I will give my rating. I will give this movie a 5.
For a face
And
hugger,
Hell yeah.
exactly.
I thought you were gonna go. "Nyeh."
That's right. But I'll catch you guys later.
See you, man.
See you, Austin.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. So Noah, do you have any other things that you want to add, or do you want to move to your rating and final thoughts?
I can do my final thoughts and rating because I'm pretty sure we covered most things I wanted to talk about anyway. So yeah, final thoughts. I mean, this movie's a classic. It's like you can't give this movie any rating under 5 out of 5 in my opinion.
Was that was that everything, or did you have something else you wanted to?
No, I mean that's basically it. Like, this movie's great. Sigourney Weaver's great in it. She's technically one of the first final girls, but like it's a role that I think anyone could have played, and I think she just pulls it off perfectly. Set design is great. The cinematography is great. It's just got such a creepy atmosphere to it. It's just such like a perfectly well-made movie with a really simple story, and it's just like executed perfectly. So, yeah.
Robert,
Great.
any final thoughts or what's your rating?
Well, I love this movie. It's great. I mean, Aliens was always my favorite growing up, and I still love it. But I do think this is like slightly better. I always feel like with this movie, like, yeah, it's really good. It's a bit slow for me in the first third, but I still like it. And on my most recent viewing, I was like, wow, this isn't slow at all for me. And I've watched this movie many times, and yeah, it just depends on who you're watching it with or what mood you're in. But like, it's a slow burn, but it's not an agonizingly slow burn. I mean, it's still like what, a 2 hour movie? Like, it's not long, and it's great. It's a great sci-fi horror classic. The last thing I want to mention is just that if you guys have seen the original like full trailer for this movie, it is one of the
Yeah.
greatest movie trailers ever made. It is so effective and good to the point that they kind of recycled the same sound and motif for the Prometheus trailer, and
Yeah.
isn't as good in my opinion, but that's a different
No.
conversation. But the trailer is so good, and to the point that both the trailer and the poster have the iconic tagline, "In space, no one can hear you scream." So good, so perfect. The marketing did a lot, like, to get people interested and pumped for this movie, and it was a
Yeah.
huge hit. But it's just all that more unusual because if you guys have seen any like old retro movie trailers, they're usually awful and clunky and weird, where like music will just come in and out abruptly. Scenes are weird. Like a famous one is the Batman '89 trailer, which is a little different
Yeah.
because that was assembled at the last minute. But a lot of old trailers are like that, where they're just awkward and clunky, but sometimes kind of cool. And Alien, it's like, wow, this is a great trailer, and not
Yeah,
enough
it's
people
like
talk about it.
it's such like a minimalist approach to it that like it's really effective. I'd
And
argue that the trailer is pretty much just as iconic as the movie itself.
And I don't know if this is just coincidence, but it feels like it would go on to set the stage for a lot of like classic '80s movies trailers, where that Alien trailer is so effective and creepy, but you don't see the xenomorph like almost at all. Like they keep the
Yeah.
creature entirely unique for the movie experience, which like Gremlins is an iconic example of that, where you don't see them on the poster, and I don't think you see them much in the trailer. So that was a popular '80s thing where like you hide the creature and make people like go to the theater to see the creature. And yeah, I wish we
Mm.
still made movies like that. But
Yeah,
Alien,
yeah.
I
They
love
got
it.
to make movies like that now. Yeah.
Jareth Gerhardt says, I can't wait for the new film this year. I'm going to go through the whole series for the first time this year. That's
Ooh,
awesome.
interesting.
You're going to hit some high highs and some low lows. But I might be joining you. It's been a minute since I've went through this franchise. I don't know if you guys have this, but this is a franchise where I would say at least half the movies in this franchise.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say honestly the first two are my favorite, and Prometheus I can go back to sometimes, but I don't know.
But
I'm kind of iffy on the rest of them.
that's just because you don't understand 4. I guess I'm gonna be like the world's biggest Alien Resurrection fan, but that's okay.
Yeah. Well, in fact, the new movie this year is why we're going through all of
Mm-hmm.
the other movies on this channel. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, I would say this is the franchise where I like maybe 50% of the movies, but it's not one I go back to a lot. So it's like it's never in like the forefront of my mind. Do you guys have that?
Yeah, I mean, that's how it is just with a lot of horror franchises. When you have a lot of installments, is at best maybe half of them are good. I mean, Evil Dead is still like at the top of my list just for consistent quality. Scream is also up there for me. Halloween is
Scream
not.
and Evil Dead were the only 2 perfect franchises until Scream shit the bed.
Well,
yeah.
I don't agree. Scream has a couple of mixed bag ones for me, but I mostly like it. Like 3, I have
Yeah.
issues
Scream
with.
is
But I like it
watchable.
okay. Yeah,
It's
I
still
think-
better than 5 and 6.
Mm,
Or maybe not 5, but
Mm.
definitely better than 6.
That's
I don't know.
that's a conversation for another time. But yeah,
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
a
most
conversation.
Chucky's another one. I like most of those. I
True.
think that's
There isn't
good.
a bad Chucky movie.
Yeah. So yeah, Alien's just like this weird. At least Alien for most of the bad ones are at least interesting, or like the ones that don't completely work, or they're so just totally different. That is one thing that Alien has over like the Halloween movies is. I mean, you have Alien Resurrection, AVP. Like they're at least very different movies.
Yeah.
You can't, even though a lot of them have like the same skeleton of the plot, and it's just people running from an alien, it's that over and over again. When you get past the bare minimum, like they're so stylistically and tonally different. Like that's at least kind of interesting.
For all of Alien 3's faults, it's at least an interesting idea.
Yeah, and it looks it's mostly
Yeah,
well
but it's
shot.
boring. That's the worst thing a movie
Yes.
can be.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's subjective.
No. Anyway, I won't say too many final thoughts because I feel like a lot of what I would have to say would just echo what's already been said. But this is, I think, kind of creeping into my top 10 movies. I'd have to like redo my list. It's been so long. But this is kind of the case of just like everyone working at the top of their game coming together to create a piece of art that I think will withstand the test of time. I'm going to give this a 5 out of 5. And Robert, since you are newer here, I have not told you this, but I keep a list of all the 5 out of 5 films that we register. And Noah, it's been a while since we've added to this list. Do you know what the last movie we put on here was?
No, what was that?
Night of the Living Dead. And how long has it been since we did that one?
Oh, that was a long time ago.
Yeah. So, Robert, since you're new here, the movies that we have on our 5 out of 5 list, and the rules are at least half of the people on the episode have to give it a 5 out of 5 to make the list.
Okay.
The Thing, The Witch, Hereditary, Hellraiser, Ghostbusters, Shaun of the Dead, The Exorcist, From Dusk Till Dawn, The Fly, Psycho, Halloween, American Psycho, Night of the Living Dead, and now Alien. Those are the only movies that we have given a perfect score, and we've done a lot of these now.
Yeah, yeah, we have.
Yeah, you guys have.
Those, I think those are all pretty deserving for the most
Yeah.
part.
I was expecting you to be like, except for From Dusk Till Dawn. I don't care what
Well, I
y'all
think
say.
that's
That movie is awesome.
That's
That
maybe
movie's
the
great.
one outlier.
No,
I have to watch it again. I remember enjoying it.
Hereditary, I still need to see. That's on my watch list, so I haven't seen that one. I think there was something else mentioned I haven't
Oh, that's
seen.
great.
Yeah, most of those, like, if I wouldn't give them a 5, I'd still give them like a 4.5. Like, there isn't anything you just rattled off that I'd give less than a 4.5. But yeah, most of those
yeah,
are 5-star movies for me as well.
yeah. The only reason the other 2 Dead movies aren't on here is my original co-host was a bastard and gave them 4.5s. Nah, I'm kidding.
Dawn of the Dead is a 5.
They're all 5 stars. The peak, perfect movies. All right, that is going to be it. I think. Oh, did you?
One last thing, Jareth, if you're still in the chat, it's awesome if you're going to go through all the Alien movies, but if you don't have time or don't get around to it, I've heard that the new Alien movie, Alien Romulus, which is why we're doing this, directed by Fede Alvarez, is apparently going to be set between Alien and Aliens. So it's going to be one of those in-between things. In-between things, which I've heard. So
in-between cool.
I mean, that's what Alien Isolation did.
Yeah.
So we'll see if it's like that. So my point is,
Saw X.
Yeah,
True.
and everyone loves Saw X. So
Saw X is peak.
So at bare minimum, like Alien's sounds like can be the only required viewing. But if you go through the whole series, that's awesome. But you should only have to watch the first one. Also watch the second one because it's great. But if the movie isn't good, we also have a new show coming out. So
just watch the first one. Actually, no, watch the second one too. Jared says Hereditary for me is not a good film. I've been more mixed on it as I've moved away from it.
I love Hereditary,
but I can see why people like it.
I've heard that's not for everyone, and that's fine.
Jared says thanks, Robert.
So yeah, if the new Alien film is a disappointment, maybe the show will be great. It's gonna be an interesting year that we might have a new movie and a show from this.
Hopefully, one of them is good.
Yeah, that's all you can.
I don't know. People are saying it's. I don't know. People are saying it's dead, but like, it hasn't been that long since the last one.
Yeah, 2017.
Yeah, 2017.
7 years.
A while ago.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
but I
7
mean,
years is a long time.
I don't know. I don't think that's long enough for me to consider it dead.
no, I agree.
No, but yeah, I mean, it's been a while.
But also, the last couple movies haven't been that well liked. Or God, I mean, there hasn't been a universally liked Alien movie since the second one. So take that for what it's worth.
But
We
so
haven't
So,
had a
last great
universally
I
Alien
beloved
guess
one
movie.
since the Alien.
I was
Since
hoping
the
Austin
Aliens.
would be here for this part, but let me ask you guys this then. Why is it so hard to make an Alien sequel after Aliens?
Maybe I don't know. Maybe that's a question we can answer later, just because of like when we talk about those movies.
So,
It might
do
be
you
more
think maybe
relevant.
going through it, maybe we'll have more insight other than we just watched the first
Yeah.
movie?
Well, I can answer as of now. I think at least with Alien 3, I know that the studio got in the way. I thought there were really cool ideas behind that movie, but the studio, I guess, was trying to make it more marketable. Resurrection, I really can't. I
Well,
don't really
Resurrection
know.
is already perfect as it is. So,
uh, Prometheus again had a lot of great ideas. It's just like some of the writing is not great, and like a lot of characters are stupid in that movie.
Mm-hmm.
Same with Covenant.
Yep.
You know, they're both great looking movies, but
Yeah.
in terms of just like the characters and how like in the plot and just like what's going on in the writing, it just doesn't stack up to this movie.
So I hate to
Yeah.
use this term because I'm not a filmmaker. I don't have the slightest like clue what it takes to make a film. But it seems like other than studio interference, the biggest problem is either laziness or just not wanting to make the thing.
Yeah, I mean, I guess laziness in terms of like how it's written, I'd
Yeah,
say.
because I mean, it seems like the biggest culprit, other than studio interference with like Alien 3, and maybe there was more studio interference in the other films, but I'm no expert. I don't know what was happening at the time, but it seems like they hire people that don't want to put in the effort to make a polished script. Whereas you have something like Alien, where I would say the script that they shot, what we have on film, is damn near perfect.
Yeah. Well, and it's a really simple story, I think, is part of the reason why it's so successful. Um, as much as I appreciate Alien 3, that it gets a little bit more like complicated, and that's probably one of its faults and why it falls off and why it feels so boring for a lot of people is just like
Now,
at
admittedly,
a
I've
certain
only
point you just
seen.
don't care about
I,
what's happening.
yeah, and now, admittedly, the only version that I remember, because I probably saw the theatrical cut as a kid when I went through the movies from my library, because I don't think the assembly cut was out. But the only cut that I remember is the one that we watched, which was the assembly cut, which
the assembly
everybody
cut, yeah.
swears is better. But like, I almost fell asleep during it.
And to be fair, I don't think the assembly cut is great watch party material just because of how much longer it is.
Yeah,
So,
well, we'll have to decide if we want to when we get there if we want to do the theatrical or the assembly or like.
I
I'll
mean,
probably watch both.
yeah, I think I'll watch both in preparation just to compare it. So
How did we watch the assembly cut? Is that streaming?
they were
I
on
don't know.
Max.
Oh
Or
yeah,
when we watched it, they were on Max. I don't know. It might be
Both
on
cuts were?
Hulu.
yeah.
both
Both
cuts
cuts were.
It might be on Hulu right now. I'm not sure.
It is on Hulu.
Okay.
Well, I mean, the worst thing about Alien 3 is just that they went into production of that movie before they had a script they were happy with. It was in development hell for several years, rewritten a lot, budget slashed, and then he started making a movie with an unfinished script that they weren't
Yeah.
happy with. That's obviously the biggest thing that went wrong, and I
I'm
hate
kinda
how
looking-
Alien 3 starts, but there's good stuff
Oh
in
yeah.
it. Well, that's a
kinda-
longer discussion for when we get there.
I'm looking forward to that episode because like there were a lot of weird, crazy ideas for the original Alien 3 that we can talk about when we get there. But
I don't think it's one of the worst sequels ever made. I think that's, but I mean, when I was younger, I really hated it. It took me a while
Yeah.
to appreciate it and
Yeah.
respect it. I still hate how that movie starts. I still have major issues with it, but there's interesting things in it. And I think the biggest problem with Alien is just we haven't expanded the lore much since the second one. And like the third one had a good idea with like the more animalistic alien, but they just didn't have the budget or effects to like make it work, make it cool, like the dog alien concept. And then
Mhm.
it's also hard to not just repeat the first couple movies because, like, I mean, I think with Alien Romulus coming out, we'll see how it turns out. I think the worst case scenario is that it's just a retread of the first Alien, so that it's just Alien again. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know how much there is to milk out of this franchise, but we're still on movie number 9, so
So
I
I'm
don't
gonna
know.
be honest with you guys. I think I'd be satisfied if this was just Alien again. It's it's been
still
long
low, it'd be
enough.
fun.
Like, just make this the soft reboot. Like, hey, you know, we're going back to basics.
I hope it's not too much of a retread, though.
I would not like it if it's a retread.
I
Give me
don't mean like
something-
a what shot for shot remake, but I think for this, because I didn't like Covenant, I like Prometheus, but the things I liked about Prometheus is a lot of the body horror, which legitimately makes me uncomfortable, and the set design. It's not. I don't like it for the writing.
Right.
And I like Alien Resurrection, but like I like it because it's funny. Funny bad. Alien 3 is boring. Like, just give us like a stripped down back to basics Alien movie. Even if you have to repeat some plot points from the original, you can make that work with how long it's been.
I mean, I would say just give me something that's in that universe. Not exactly the same story, but I guess kind of harkens back to the original.
They just remake Alien Resurrection shot for shot.
I mean, yeah, you would like that.
I would love that.
Well, and what sucks about Alien 3 is that's kind of what it was going for. It was, hey, let's just do Alien again, where it's just one alien and a bunch of people, but let's do it different. We're on a prison. We're not in space anymore. Like, okay, you did a couple things differently, but the setup is so awful, and the movie is so miserable and slow. It like there's just so many things working against it. But
right.
at its core, I like that it's just Alien again, but different. It just doesn't all come together.
I think,
you know, and then
with
Alien
that-
Resurrection is Aliens again, but in such a different tone and
but
style.
like weirder.
But weirder. Which is saying a
Yeah.
lot for a Giger design
Yeah.
movies.
Yeah, definitely. No, but I mean, this is a really. I mean, I don't go back to this franchise a lot, like we were talking about earlier, but it's a really fascinating franchise to talk about, and I'm just really excited to get into the rest of them when we get there, whenever we get there.
For sure. And at one point, Neil Blomkamp was attached to do a new Alien sequel that would have been just
Yeah.
a sequel to Aliens that would have scrapped everything else. He's also attached to a RoboCop sequel, and I'm really sad that didn't happen. His movies are more bad than good, but I think he's a good fit for those properties, at least if someone else is writing the script. But that's like the closest we got to like a Aliens sequel where it's just Ripley and Hicks and Nuke back with a bunch of aliens, and there's lots of cool concept art. I don't know if that would have been good or not, but it's like we missed it. Like 10 years ago, it would have been cool, and now it's just too late. Like they're just too old. So that's
Right.
probably not going to happen again, and that sucks. But I don't know how good that would have been, but we did come close to getting like Aliens again.
Yeah,
like
I honestly
mainstream.
would have really liked that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, you know, I mean, we'll have to wait and see what the state of this franchise is like later this year.
Yeah, but
Yeah, it's gonna be very different.
we'll save that for maybe another video. Maybe once we get a trailer, we can do like a speculation if you guys are interested in that.
I'd be down for that, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think we're gonna run longer than I wanted it to, but not that that's a bad thing by any means.
Hey, we got more content.
We got more content. Torgo, what did we land on last Shutter Shuffle? Alligator, that was it.
Alligator.
Yes.
So let's do Alligator next week, get that out of the way so we can, you know, finally get the Shutter Shuffle season done. Robert and I will be back next.
Well, if you want, we can focus on Shutter Shuffle for a little bit just to get it done, and then come back to Alien or do something else. I don't know. Whatever you want.
let's after this, let's focus on Shutter Shuffle. We got like 3 movies left.
Okay.
including Exorcist 3, and I want to get that Exorcist 3
Hell
review
yeah.
done. I'm itching to
Ooh, yeah, I
talk
love
about
that
it.
one.
Yeah,
So Robert and I
love
will
that
be
movie.
back next Thursday around 7-ish Eastern time to do another Last of Us stream. Hopefully we can make more progress than we did last night. And then Torgo,
Yeah,
if
you
you
were
want
fine.
if you want to join, I'm trying to talk Robert into watching the Buffy pilot and doing a video on it. So that might be a fun video to do sometime in the future once we can get everything coordinated. Because this man has never seen an episode of Buffy, and we got to change that.
Oh, okay.
I made
mean-
Torgo watch. We were on like season 5, I think.
We were on like half the show, yeah. I think
Yeah.
something like season 5, yeah.
We got to go back. We got to go back. But no,
back,
thanks guys for hanging out. We'll keep updated on that. I just wanted to tease. You know, we're cooking a couple things. But next week, Last of Us on Thursday, and then Alligator on Friday, and we'll
Alligator.
keep pushing through Shutter Shuffle and get those done. And then once we finish The Last of Us, I've got some other games that I'm going to stream probably. I've been really itching to play some more Resident Evil. We were talking about that when you popped in the chat the other night. I'm itching to play some Resident Evil, but I don't want to overload the channel. Like, I'm doing this game and now I'm doing this game. Now I'm doing this game. It's like, we'll finish this game.
I mean,
we'll move on to
whatever
the
you're
next
in the
one.
mood for.
Yeah.
I mean, I love Resident Evil, so
Yeah.
that'll be good.
I might break my promise though and do some Resident Evil 4 tomorrow. It's calling me. It's calling me, man. But no, that's not a promise. But we'll see you guys next time. Robert, Torgo, as always, thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure. See you.
Always.